What's up, everybody? Welcome to another hot day of speedrunning action here on GSA. First up today, we've got another Super Mario Odyssey any percent league race between Dansta and Stravos. I'm Kerbis, and joining me on commentary today is Electric. How you doing, man?
I'm doing real fabulous. I just got done grinding a few any percent run attempts myself, and I'm ready to see some guys that are actually good at this game. You know, do some really cool stuff in front of us. Both
No
these
doubt.
guys, great competitors. Travis in particular, I feel like is a little bit of a favorite in this race, but Dansta certainly going to be making him work for that W.
Yeah, these are two of the best, as you have come to expect in these GSA leagues. And both of these guys actually are coming off of pretty good wins in their last matches. They both got 101s in their previous race. So, and those times were only separated by less than 10 seconds. So hopefully they can both pull off similar times today and we can have a close race on our hands.
Here's certainly hoping, and I mean, any race you see of this game in particular, it seems to have a lot to do with momentum, as far as whether someone will do well or badly, as with any really top level movement heavy speed game like this. So it'll be interesting to see how coming off of those 101s they'll be performing today.
Yeah, for sure. And just another little behind the scenes look, Dansta was actually saying before the race that he was doing some practice for this race, and he managed to break the sub-hour sum of best barrier. So looking good for him as far as practice goes today.
Yep, but unfortunately, that does not save you from accidentally forgetting to start your timer as Dansta has done. So we're gonna have to wait just a moment for him to get through that intro cutscene to get back to where he can restart his timer.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, that's a bit of a rookie mistake there. So yeah, it looks like we are just going to restart, make sure these streams are synced up properly. So that is really the only way for on the production side to make sure that the racers are actually starting the race at the same time so it can be timed properly. So we're just going to get that sorted out and get going very soon here. And I feel like as this league progresses, I think that the average times for the racers are tending to trend downwards. I believe someone got even a 100 time recently. I think it was Chaos in his last race. And
Yeah, I know.
might
Little Curb's last race, he actually tied his PB 127.
That's
So
right. That's actually what I was thinking of. Yeah,
that was
so there's been a couple 100 times in this league so far, and they've both been pretty recent. So that's people are maybe getting more accustomed to the high pressure race setting, and they tend to be performing better. So maybe we might even see another 100 today. I know Stravos has a high 100 PB, and Dansta still has a low 101, so it'd have to be extremely good runs, possibly PB pace runs for them to do it in this race, but I have no doubt that that kind of thing is possible with as much as these guys
certainly.
practice.
And especially right now at the beginning of the race, anything is possible, which I think kind of lends a little bit of originality to every run going through these first two kingdoms. Constantly, it kind of feels a little bit stale having to go through the topper fight and the madame fight and all this other stuff over and over again. But just knowing that any given run could be one that is a pretty significant PB for you, and for these guys, one run that could be an hour run in a race, that's gotta give at least some kind of like, okay, well, this is still worth doing kind of feeling to these guys.
Yeah, another thing to kind of keep an eye on, I guess, is Dansta is somewhat known for his incredibly fast early games. I think he has some of the best cap time, like the best average cap time out of any runner, and just like his Cascade and Sand as well tend to be very quick.
Oh, but this left side fail is going to be costing him that in this race while Stravos is moving right on into the topper fight already. Wow.
Yeah, that's a few seconds of time loss. So Dansta, generally the Cap Kingdom god, but blubbing a little bit here. Although that jump is very tough, so even the best of the best do fail it, like, not relatively often, but it's not out of the question on any given race for that to happen, for sure.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't save a lot of time over right side, right?
No, it's only 2 or 3 seconds.
But I think really the big advantage is it takes away having to deal with that tricky, like threading the needle type movement through right side.
Yeah, right side can have its own, issues, but definitely much easier. But, 2 to 3 seconds might not sound like a lot, but in this setting, when you're trying to shave off every possible second you can, and as good as everyone in this league is, going left side is pretty much a given.
Oh
You
yeah, of course.
you just have to. Oh my
Oh,
god,
but Stravos
Stravos.
failing the wet FMS, so that's... Oh, but Dansta not able to get on top to get his wall jump, so both of them losing a fair amount of time. Stravos managing to pull away still with the lead, but that's not... These guys getting off to a kind of rocky start at the very beginning of this run.
Yeah, I
It'll be
think I
interesting to
think
see if they can
Dansta
finish around.
actually made up a slight amount of time there, even though they both failed FMS the first try, because Stravos kind of got deeper into the jump and then kind of bonked on the barrier, whereas Dansta just kind of slid up on the wall and didn't get a proper wall jump. So I think he actually did still make up a little bit of time there.
See if they can pull into a decisive position, especially with Sand coming up in just a moment.
Yeah, so definitely not the super cleanest starts from either runner right here in the early kingdoms, but Sand, I say it every time, Sand is where stuff really starts to go down. I think that's one of the toughest kingdoms in the run, personally. And
Easily, yeah. It's certainly one of the longer, and with how many movement options you have available, and with just how complex some of the movement gets. I mean, I think only 3 or 4 times in this run do you really expect to see a delayed capture, and obviously with Dramstrat with Sand, that's one of them. And so that kind of already puts it in a bit of a league of having these, and especially these guys being on 1.0 having to do Sphinx clip. That's already, you've got two pretty intimidating tricks pretty well spaced apart in this kingdom too. It's not like there's one particular section that's especially difficult and you can kind of breathe easier after that one section's over. The whole kingdom is filled with that.
yeah, it's a very open kingdom too. It's just a lot of open movement. You have to cover a lot of ground, so it becomes very easy to just lose little bits of time here and there on top of the two difficult tricks.
Stravos actually failing the box clip there, so Dansta going to be making off with a lead going into Sand. That treasure chest clip can be kind of weird for sure.
Yeah, it's just a very it's a precise cap throw timing, but you also kind of have to be positioned on the chest in a good way to make it work. So it can be tricky. Just another thing that is a little finicky. Thankfully, that doesn't lose very much time. Probably about as much time as that failed left side would lose. So Dansta with a bit of a sloppy cap, but he had overall a much better cascade. So he's gonna go into the big kingdom Sand with a few seconds of a lead.
But you do have to wonder still how a start like this is going to impact their mentality, because I mean, both of them I'm sure can't be happy with it. And I know me personally, like starting a run just a few seconds off of my best in cap alone can already kind of tilt me, even though it's just a few seconds and I have minutes of time lost later in the run. So it really, and especially being a race situation, I wonder if Stravos knows about Dancer reclaiming this lead and how that's affecting his mentality going into this big kingdom.
Yeah, I think even from not only from runner to runner, but from an individual runner from race to race, I think they tend to take different approaches to how they keep tabs on their opponents. Some people might elect to just go full focus mode and not worry about what their opponent is doing, because after all, you cannot control what the other runner is going to do. And some like to know, just to have an idea of where they stand, because there is like a factor in this league. If you all remember that it's not only you want to win the race, but you want to win the race by a larger amount of time, because the bigger the time difference gap, the more points you're going to get for this race. So it can be beneficial to know where your opponent is and to know how far ahead or behind you are.
Yeah, but like you said earlier, it's ultimately up to that personal preference and just kind of knowing what makes you the better player in the given situation. Both of them going for slightly different versions of that strat there, with Dansta rocking the more traditional side flip movement, but Stravos pulling out the long jump, but I think saved them just a little bit of time at the cost of being a little bit more precise.
Also, the varying dram strats setups, but it looks like they both got it just fine. I think Stravos' setup there with the spin jump on the ice block is slightly faster, but it's less than like half a second, so nothing too big there. Dansta still going to hold down this lead as we approach the Sphinx, and this is another spot where leads could easily change.
Now let's see what Dansta's got going into this clip. And first try, Stravos got a pretty difficult set to match, but he manages it. And so Dansta going to be able to collect most of that second coin pile as well. So he's totally filled up on coins. Stravos going to be needing a couple more throughout the rest of the run. Dansta with the beautiful second clip. And Stravos had a little bit of an issue with his second. So 2 for 3 overall. Dansta coming away 2 for 2 though. Perfect record. Just beautiful performance so far.
Yeah, so 4 for 5 for the clips between both runners. That is pretty good. But yeah, Stravos is going to lose just a couple seconds to that failed clip attempt on top of his already couple second deficit. So Dansta definitely having, coming away slightly better in Sand Kingdom so far. And the rest is fairly routine.
Pretty difficult, honestly, to mess up Jaxie skip unless you just get a bad position with the bullet bill. I think that my last memorable failures have all been just I came at it with the bullet bill from a weird position, and I just hit the, like in one case I remember I hit the corner of the panel rather than head on the panel. And
yeah, it's pretty generous what like part of that wall you can run into with the bullet bill, but there are definitely with those walls in particular, they're tricky to like wall jump off of. So if you have a weird exit out of the bullet bill, it's just probably going to eat your wall jump and kind of force you down into the poison, and it's like almost impossible to save at that point.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate how the poison stretches so far in that one area in particular, whereas like just on the side to the left, it would be just super easy to save.
Dansta actually took a fall off of the first palm tree as he was trying to collect the third note, so he's actually going to fall back behind here. Stravos taking the lead once again as they make their final roll back towards the Odyssey to leave Sand Kingdom.
Pretty big moves there, that's for sure. Pretty big moves for these guys.
Yeah, that Notes Moon, definitely pretty tricky, as opposed to the moon it replaced in the sand route, which was the crate. Not much room for error on that crate moon, but the Notes Moon just ever so slightly faster, so we saw a lot of people in the last few months kind of switch up their routes to accommodate that, but it is definitely tougher to do optimally, so it's a bit of a difficulty spike, but nothing too crazy. Unfortunately, Dansta just making an I would say probably pretty uncommon mistake for him with falling off the tree entirely.
Yeah, and I mean, with that reroute too, one thing that it kind of pushed people to do as a side effect is it makes a lot more sense to do Dram Strat. And like if you're not doing Dram Strat with the change to notes instead of crate, then it really gets awkward when you're on top of that platform just for that bullet bill kind of waiting around a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely seems to make the Dram Stat more worth it and more beneficial to go for. But now we'll see yet another chance for leads to change, even though we are virtually tied. Dan's only behind by a second or two, but we're going to have a late clip here. We'll see how this goes. And Stravos is going to like to not go for it, while Dan's is going to set it up. Looks like he has not satisfied with his positioning entirely, and he's going to get the fake clip. So he's going to have to set up for that again. And at this point, he is probably losing time to the route that Stravos is going for, but maybe coming out even. And I actually didn't see if he grabbed the checkpoint there. I couldn't tell.
It looked like he did. He is getting the save, so I believe that means that he did for sure. The text definitely appeared, so.
Yes, so Dansta maybe breaking even there, maybe losing a slight amount of time.
But now he will be saving a couple of seconds over in Metro Kingdom, which will be nice. So if it's still tied up pretty even by then, he will still be seeing benefits. So that's kind of an interesting thing about this route.
Yeah, if he would have managed to clip through the corner the first time, he definitely would have saved time. But fortunately, just like sometimes it looks like your hat is in a really good position to get the clip, but you just kind of roll off to the side instead, and it can be really hard to tell sometimes whether or not you have the proper lineup.
Yeah, there's a reason that clip in particular was known about for a long time, and it wasn't until like a couple months ago that it really started becoming commonplace.
Yeah, as we get closer and closer to that sub-hour, any percent time, people are looking for more stuff like that that they previously kind of left out for difficulty purposes. But runners will take anything that they can get at this point to shave off those last 10 to 20 seconds.
Yeah, but it's still just wild to think that as of yesterday, it's 10 seconds that need to be shaved off of Nycro's current world record.
Yeah, it's closer than ever. It could, I mean, it would take a really good run at the current moment, but it feasibly could happen if somebody had a really godlike run, which is kind of crazy to think about that we're quickly approaching that time of a
Yeah, really
sub-hour
just
Odyssey run.
one more discovery that saves 10 seconds, and it's really feasible that it'll happen one day.
And certainly, even without a discovery within the next few months, I would guess by summertime, these guys will have figured it out. They'll have shaved their movement off by just enough to get there. Yeah, Stravos gonna take, well, I'd say a slightly bigger lead than he left Sand with coming into Wooded. But this is another one of those mammoth kingdoms that just everything can go wrong and lose you a lot of time.
And especially with the routes that these guys are doing with that out of bounds movement, they can be just really, really tricky and lose you so much time. And then, of course, the pipes and ending movement. There's so much that can go wrong at this level and like at any level, really. I think Wooded is certainly also a contender for one of the more difficult kingdoms, which is kind of interesting, being that along with Sand, it's one of the two first longer kingdoms. So I really think this Sand and Luncheon are kind of in their unique realm of just really difficult, dense open worlds.
Yeah, I would agree. Those are definitely, in my opinion, the three tougher kingdoms in the run. But Stravos looks like he has a good clip for the Rockwall Moon. He's going to get it up, back in bounds nicely. And Dansta looks to be following suit.
Yep,
So nice.
perfect.
Nice
That
nut clips
is
from both runners.
a huge relief to see that working out for both our guys. But Dansta not able to move alongside this wall here. Getting Capler just out in the middle of nowhere for whatever reason, losing even more time to Stravos at the moment.
Yeah, kind of getting the awkward single jump at the top of the ramp instead of the triple that he was looking for. I have to back up and try that again, but I got the hard part out of the way. If you fail the actual clip, then that's going to lose you a lot more time than any other successive failure. So
Which it is worth pointing out too that Wooded Kingdom has just a distinctly higher number of spins than a lot of other kingdoms due to just the sheer number of ground pounds you're having to do. And that just adds an even higher layer of difficulty to what's already a really technical stage.
yeah, I gotta break open all these nuts.
Stravos opting for just a standard ground pound there for whatever reason. Against going for the same. He was going for spin pounds earlier in a number of spots. I think that the dive just doesn't work out there for it.
Yeah, sometimes I think some people just don't go for the spin pound on that particular nut because you can't dive out of a spin pound, and so you have to kind of do like a really tight jump off of the nut as you break it to kind of just keep yourself in the air, which I believe is faster, but it's much more difficult to do. So I think for that nut in particular, since it's kind of hanging off of the wall instead of sitting on the floor, people just elect for the ground pound.
Makes a lot of sense that way, for sure. And both these guys with super clean flower road skips.
Yeah, Stravos looks to be just inching further away in Wooded Kingdom here. He's going to be the first to exit the tower and work his way back down to the main land of Wooded Kingdom to grab his last 3 moons.
I think it's pretty cool too now, how you end flooded pipes with the teleport back to the Odyssey rather than before. Obviously, you'd have to end pipes with going out of the pipe to eventually reach Stewart.
Yeah, that's one of the big benefits of the route being this way. Anytime you're able to warp out of a sub area, it's beneficial because it will let you travel a lot further of a distance than just going through the load zone to leave.
Okay, so let's see how their flooded pipes go. Stravos leaving, not a whole lot of room for Dansta to catch up.
Yeah, that was a very nice pipeway from him. And it looks like Dansta's on good pace. He just needs to make sure to get this wall jump.
Perfect.
That's one
Beautiful
place in the
stuff.
game where a lot of people tend to get accidental air twirls when they're trying to wall jump off of that wall. So nicely done. Not happening to either runner here. So yeah, outside of the mishap on the ramp, Dansta had a pretty decent Wood Kingdom as well as Stravos, but unfortunately that will cost him yet another 2 or 3 seconds.
And this run so far certainly has been defined by these little small time losses, like having to take a little longer on late clip, failing that left side movement at first. Just these little things that aren't amounting to more than 10 seconds of time loss each, but Stravos is just playing too well to really warrant making those mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of like we alluded to, with both runners having a 101 in their previous race, you got to imagine there's very little room for error in this kind of matchup. Both seem to be playing well. So it is going to come down to those little 2 to 3 second time losses at the end of the day, most likely. And Stravos has managed to keep those mostly in check to this point. Gonna get a little bit of an unoptimal last phase of the Bowser fight for Stravos, as Bowser's going to jump 2 circles away, but nothing too huge there. As long as you're not bonking into Bowser or missing the hack grabs, then you're going to be pretty good on this fight.
Yep, and especially with the modern backflipping strats that you see these guys doing. Remind me again, that's a backflip and then a quick cap throw as soon as the cap gets thrown into you, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just a well-timed cap throw, and it's pretty lenient. You have a pretty large window to throw your cap to be able to grab Bowser's hat as he tries to toss it. So that's even a strat that the beginners out there can try for. Makes this fight a lot faster, rather than have to stand back in the center and wait for Bowser to do his thing.
Beautiful movement up to this first moon. I really love seeing that cappy vaulting movement over the triple jump that most people used to do. I still have to use the triple jump, and it's reliable, but it's just it just feels so clumsy.
Yeah, it's a lot of setup time. That's how a lot of strats were early on in this game, I feel. A lot of setting up triples or double jumps to get more height, but as people have gotten accustomed to the movement, they're able to get maximized height out of single jumps and get well-timed cap return jumps, and it makes a lot of stuff considerably faster. It's kind of crazy in this game. There's actually I think there's 6 different jump heights.
Yeah, that sounds about right, and I mean, all of them really ultimately serve a purpose. Even with jumps of similar height, like backflips, side flips, and ground pound jumps, each one has its own use cases that make a lot of sense over the other 2.
Yeah, exactly. They all have very similar heights, those 3, but they are still varying to a small extent, and just depending on what your movement leading up to a certain jump would be, one could be better than the other.
Now, like me personally, when I first started, I really overused ground pound jumps and eventually kind of started realizing that, hey, using a side flip here or a back flip there would make the, oh, Dansta failing there. Not a really bad place to end up taking a death, since it does warp you right back to the Odyssey. But when you go for that strat out of there, it certainly feels clumsy to end up bonking there on the side of the bridge and end up having to take the death anyway, when you've already got Cappy in your hands ready to go.
Yeah, if you were to intentionally take the death right after grabbing the moon, I think it only loses about a second. But yeah, like you said, if you're attempting to jump out and wind up bonking, it's going to lose you a little bit more. So just another instance of, those 2-second time losses gonna help pad Stravos' lead heading into Metro Kingdom.
Metro Kingdom certainly not coming out to play. Just really, I think Night Metro especially is kind of a abrupt difficulty spike, especially for beginner runners, just because of all of. First off, this movement here is fairly technical overall. That canopy can have a little bit of nuance to it that when you're first starting out, you don't catch little things like you can't do any sort of cap throwing before hitting that canopy, and just like little parts about the timing, getting that wall jump there, and Stravos going here for the standard movement rather than Goomba jump there. When you start getting more advanced and trying to integrate things like Goomba jump, that just makes this kingdom even worse. And when you get to Indoor City Hall, it's just really the icing on top of the cake with that stupid long jump on the end. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, I think Lost Kingdom and Night Metro in particular is like the first point in the game where you really have these spots where you have to jump over actual death planes. So like if you're falling, it's not just losing you a couple seconds, like you're gonna die.
Right. It's you lose minutes in these two areas, not seconds.
Yeah, like for instance, if you were to fail this long jump across the top, I think that loses you about 30 seconds. So it's pretty significant. And to top it all off, you get the opportunity to potential 3-cycle the Wiggler fight, which also would lose you 20 plus seconds. Now that's something I don't think is being like keeping track of, is 3-cycle Wigglers, but I know it doesn't happen very often with top runners, but I'd be interested to know if there have been any 3 cycles in this league, and if so, how many. Because I feel like these runners mostly have it under wraps. You can react to pretty much any cycle the Wiggler gives you, but every now and then he just gives you a really nasty pattern that you're maybe not expecting.
Right. If he just coils up really badly on that second phase, the game just cannot seem to handle him having two hitboxes overlapping like that. And if he somehow managed to like coil over himself 3 times, that would just be the holy grail of terrible RNG there.
Yeah, and it can happen. It's pretty unfortunate. Like it does kind of feel like luck whether the game will give you the hit or not, but thankfully Stravos getting a good pattern there. He's going to get a clean 2-cycle, and Dansta also getting a decent pattern.
Ooh, not taking any sort of damage either. He's going to be saving a decent amount of time over Stravos here, I think.
Yeah,
he's starting the cutscene as Stravos is about midway through it.
Stravos had about 3 shots to get off when the Wiggler stopped moving, and Dansta only had 1, so going to be a little bit of a faster fight for him.
Yeah. Fortunately, we didn't see either of them have to deal with if he does try to shield up, he shields up from front to back. So you can, if you kind of plan your shots accordingly, you can end up having him like halfway through shielding and still get your shots off at the back couple of segments and get him to be ready to die that way. But obviously that loses probably a good 7 seconds or so over getting it optimally without ever having him try to shield. Not that much. That's pretty extreme, but anywho, who cares about Wiggler when you're moving into day metro? He is behind us. These guys, not going to have to worry about him until next race. Let's see what they have in store for us. Let's see what the taxi is going to do this time around. That taxi you've seen is kind of gotten in some runners' ways. And meanwhile, the taxi not getting in Stravos' way, it's the scooter clip. And Dansta is now in the lead since he's got that insta clip under his belt. Stravos having to really work at that back clip, it looked like he was going for after 2 failed side flips. So
yeah, that was a 4th try clip there, including the initial drive-by. So that's enough to swing it back in Dansta's favor. Still pretty close here, but that was a pretty big gap. That was probably the biggest single time loss that we've seen in the race so far.
Yeah, I don't think there's been any failure that's really trying to think back through the run. There's been nothing like that.
Yeah,
Dansta losing a bit of time on late clip, that wasn't anywhere near as bad. The even the left side fail, that wasn't anywhere near as bad.
yeah, Dance has just been kind of losing 2-second gaps here or there, but Stravos maybe closer to 10 seconds almost on that scooter clip, so that's going to bring it back to even.
But it did look like neither of them getting taxi trolled, which in Stravos' case, it was actually just because of how much time he had lost to that scooter clip. But Dansta with a pretty nice feeling lead right now, almost an entire one of these extremely long moon cutscenes ahead.
Yeah, and the taxis are actually a really frustrating thing in Metro because you're like trying to create a route for something and everything seems to work out on paper, and then you go try it in practice, and just because of the way the movement works out, it places a taxi directly in your way because they are on just like a global cycle. It can be very annoying. Or just like any couple second mess up could potentially put a taxi in your way where otherwise it wouldn't be, and wind up losing you even more time than whatever you messed up initially.
Yep. Although, at least Nintendo have the decency to put them on a cycle rather than just completely random movement. That would have been pretty atrocious.
Yeah, we got pretty lucky. Nintendo elected to not put anything too random in this game in general, for the most part.
I think it's like Goombas have fixed spawn positions, but the way they move is a bit random. That's pretty well the biggest example I can think of.
Yes, like most of the enemies, I guess, sort of move randomly, but a lot of times you can kind of pseudo manipulate how they move just based on how you move Mario. It's not an exact science, of course, but they can kind of be influenced a lot of the time. That Goomba in Night Metro, I don't think is one of them, though. I think that one's just kind of, you're too far away to do anything about how he's going to move.
Oh, yeah. I think when you actually have him in focus on the camera, he doesn't have a whole lot of time to move around. I was thinking more of like the Snow Kingdom in one of those ice rooms.
Yeah.
Or at the beginning of Lake Kingdom too. Those Goombas can kind of be trolly.
Yeah, I guess Goombas enlarged are just kind of trolls, but and Spinies as well, but thankfully I don't see that in 90%. I don't think at all. I don't think there's any Spinies that get in your way.
Stravos with that nice clean movement throughout this section, saving a little bit of time over Dansta opting for the double flip.
So yeah, very clean day Metro from Dansta here. On top of the slightly faster Wiggler fight is going to give him the lead heading into I kind of say the back half. You know, this is 30 minutes in, so Metro's kind of the halfway point of the run.
It certainly feels like it. I mean, you can kind of, in some ways, split the game into like two smalls and then larger kingdoms. So like you start with Cap Cascade, then you have Sand, decently large. It kind of gets broken a little bit with Lake and then Wooded, but then you got Cloud and Lost and Night Metro grouped into Day Metro, and then now Snow and Seaside, then going into Luncheon. So it kind of finishing off Metro really finishes off that first act, or second act as it were. Snow starting out the next section. I think it's pretty natural feeling too, just because you've got these really I think one way you could describe it is like biome focused kingdoms. So like Snow Kingdom, it's really emphasizing these ice physics and these specific enemies that you're only going to be seeing here. But then when you get to Seaside, it has a lot more to do with swimming movement. Most of the kingdom is, of course, underwater, so trying to move Mario around there would just be a nightmare. And even though there are a decent number of moons on the shore, we still have to go get over half of them out in the water. So, but when you compare that to Lake Kingdom, you just have that one kind of overall short swimming section. I mean, the whole kingdom is short, so there's not really much of a chance to see all of the lake stuff involved.
Yeah, that's kind of the difference between Lake and Seaside, even though they are both largely water kingdoms. You see a lot more of the content seaside happening actually underwater because there's just kind of that one sliver of a beach, whereas lake kind of has a lot of solid ground just above the water.
I don't know
And
if you saw that
Stravos,
there, but yeah, Stravos was missed that bridge jump.
but
That's gonna
he
cost him a
did
fair bit of
get
time.
the moon clip to. Oh my god, is he gonna die? No, he hit the load zone. Okay,
Oh wow, that was real close.
so yeah, that's a nice little time save, probably a second or two, if you can get that moon clip. Pretty difficult, and you obviously only get one shot at it, but thankfully it doesn't really take any time to go for. If you miss it, you're not really losing out on anything compared to if you just don't go for it at all. So definitely worth trying.
And despite it, it has a pretty low success rate, I believe, among all the top runners.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing that if you take the time to set it up and kind of clear out to see where you're standing in the snow,
It's not worth
uh,
at all.
yeah, like wasting the time to do that isn't really worth it, but it would make the success rate higher. But yeah, I think it's definitely smarter to take the approach that Stravos did and just kind of YOLO it and hope for the best. And if it fails, then you just go down the normal way. It's no big deal.
And these Goombas playing pretty nicely for Dansta on his end.
And Stravos going to get that one to follow him over, so going to be just slightly faster.
It could just be my imagination, but Stravos's Stravos's deficit already looking a little bit smaller since it started forming in Metro. I think he's starting to kind of pull out some. That was kind of a bit of a commentator's curse moment with him swinging out so far, but
Yeah, I'm not
yeah,
sure what happened there because it looked like to me that he got the triple jump, but elected to just kind of go off to the side for some reason. I think he would have been able to make it across that gap.
just really weird movement decisions and math. Let's see if they're able to get the Snowdram and move on into Seaside to show off that new route.
Yeah, this is one that I've seen in a good number of races so far. Swing a lead, this painting jump. So we'll see. Both runners can get the fast setup, get the first try. Dance to in the air. Looks like he's going to be good. Yeah, he clears it by a mile. No problem. Stravos, I think with a little bit faster of a setup there. And he's also
And
going
it's
to make
good.
it. Yep. So yeah, getting to Seaside with this new route. A lot of you may not have even seen or heard about this yet, but there was a little clip involving the fish, the cheap sheep capture, that you can kind of get to the edge of the kingdom and exit the capture and then recapture to kind of push yourself out of bounds. And it made a different moon faster than the Notes moon that you've been used to seeing for all these months. So it's going to be saving about 5 seconds optimally, and it's actually a pretty easy clip to do. So it's a pretty consistent time save over the old route.
Yeah, as Danger said yesterday, I hate to use the word, but it's free, ultimately. I mean, you just have to position a cheap right on the edge of the out of bounds section. And for whatever reason, the solid plane doesn't extend anywhere near as far down as it looks like it does. And so by recapturing, you just push him slightly further out, and he's able to go right underneath the world. And it's kind of bittersweet, I'd say, because it ends up defuncting Rocket Flower Refresh in this category, which I know a
Yeah.
number of runners invested a lot of time into getting consistently because it, it saved a great deal of time and it was pretty difficult.
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of variations of it, like one much more precise version that saved even more time but was incredibly difficult. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much obsolete now. So yeah, this route is not only faster, but I would say overall much easier.
Ooh, and
And
Stravos with that beautiful movement getting up to the Gashin Moon.
so yeah, you're just gonna see them get this triple jump into the water and go straight for the cheap sheep here instead of making that wide detour over to the Notes moon. And it'll be the same route that you're used to seeing up until the very end, and the last two moons will be collected out of bounds essentially.
Yeah. Oh, Stravos taking damage. The tops of those little algae pieces. I'm not even sure exactly what they're called, but their hitbox can be kind of weird and kind of deceiving. It's like to an extent the very tip won't hit you, but as you saw there, if you get down just a little bit further than the very point, then it will hit you pretty reliably.
Yeah, I'm not a
But
big fan of those guys. I have a name for them that probably isn't appropriate for the GSA stream, so I'll leave that out of the picture. But yeah, Stravos is
50
gonna.
50% C, 50% weed.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
Yeah,
let's
so
see
we're gonna
Dance to
see,
come up on this clip here. He's gotta get into this little part of the wall that juts out. It's like makes a little uh, indent,
and
and
there he goes.
just slips right out of bounds.
As you can see, just beyond that lip, there is no solid ground whatsoever to this area. It just immediately becomes just free.
So yeah, going into this Sphinx room, normally what you would have to do is talk to the Sphinx and answer a quiz question that he has for you. Uh, much like the one in Seaside you would have to do if not for Sphinx Clip there. So we now abuse 3 Sphinxes in this category overall, including Moonskip.
Seaside question mark. Interesting name for the Sand Kingdom. Um, and I feel like here too we don't have the luxury of, at least in Sand Kingdom with digital. His answer is always the first one that you have to choose. And I think that this one's like the third answer or something. So you have to do some kind of weird menuing too.
Yeah.
And it just be such a pain to deal with. And of course, Nicro making an appearance in chat just to call those enemies sea bacon. I mean, it's accurate. I think it's a good name.
Yeah, that's a much nicer name than I have, so we'll go with Sea Bacon.
And likewise, Seaside, much nicer than the kingdom that they're entering right now, Luncheon. This salt pile jump will never cease to amaze me. I still rock the backflip version of this skip, and I don't get how people do this jump so quickly and still so precisely.
Yeah, it's not only like a weird precise spot you have to triple jump off of, but it makes the actual jump to get up onto the roof tighter as well. There's less room for error with your cap jump timing.
And so let's see them go ahead and dispatch Spirit real quick. Really should not present a problem for any season runner.
Yeah, Spirit's a bit of a pushover, as are all the Brutals.
Yeah,
Except
I mean,
for the Bowser Kingdom one.
Oh,
But
that's true. Yeah. Especially the last phase of Topper where he goes into like 18 caps or something like that. Like, it's really difficult to precisely jump on his and not the ones around it and end up missing him because of it.
yeah. I think it shouldn't technically be any more difficult, but I think just like probably the pressure of being in the late game, as well as just like a lot going on, like all those caps kind of distracting you, can get to your head a little bit.
I think it's just harder to kind of pinpoint exactly where you should jump to hit that. And I think too the overlapping of the hitboxes, if I remember right, you can only crush like 2 or 3 of them at a time with a single jump. So
Yeah.
if you get at a slight angle, what would have worked in the Cap Kingdom Topper fight just will not work whatsoever. It's pretty ridiculous. And as you were I think making reference to the mech, the mech has certainly been a force to be reckoned with for a number of players, especially when they go for the ultra fast strats like mission acquired or target acquired.
Yeah, that one kind of goes without saying. Definitely, probably the toughest boss fight in this game.
Now imagine doing it on the moon.
That one's surprisingly a lot easier than the normal version.
Yeah, it's a bit more free to get back on top of the mech there.
Yeah.
But of course, not knowing how to get on top of the mech casually makes it a bit more challenging.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely, in that version, you get the hammer bros on the side that they want you to throw hammers at the little compartments to break them. That is definitely the way I did it first time.
Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that fun?
Good old days.
God, I also just love this up throw movement for the fork flicking room that people do now. I mean, I hate doing it personally.
I was
But
gonna
I love
say,
seeing it.
it's cool to look at, but I don't know that I would say I love it.
Oh, it's Stravos demonstrating why exactly we don't personally love it. It's really, I think that up throws just weren't tested very much in this game because on a Procon, it's a very awkward, very specific movement you have to do. Like, I don't know if it's this way for everyone, but whenever I was using a Pro controller, I would have to move the entire controller like perfectly laterally upward. I couldn't have it tilted in any way. Because the way I would naturally try to do an up throw is kind of like flick the top of the controller up a little bit, but every time I do that without fail, it'd always be like a side throw or just
Or
something
spin
else
throw.
really, yeah, just really stupid stuff.
Yeah,
And so
Dansta actually took 3 tries there to get his lava bubble up to the top area, so Stravos is going to make up a good little chunk of time there as they both go for their turnip clip attempts.
And that's one of those tricks that can just be unnecessarily precise for really weird reasons. Oh, Stravos taking damage going to be losing even more time than what it might initially look like, having to try desperately to kill the Spiny.
And that was actually very scary because he was taking that slowly, because if he just kind of sprayed the frying pans to try to kill that Spiny, he would have wound up breaking the turnip essentially, and that would have forced him to go do this moon the normal way. So he was being very careful there to kill the Spiny without breaking the turnip and costing him a lot more time. So Dansta didn't have the cleanest turnip clip either. He took 2 attempts to kind of realign the turnip, but I think he's going to walk away there with a bigger lead than he had going into it, for sure. Yeah, we'll see here Dansta with that roughly 44.08 multi-moon grab. Stravos looks to be coming in probably 12 or 13 seconds behind here.
I mean, but either way, both of them looking really, really good going into these last 3 kingdoms here. Stravos certainly not in a completely insurmountable position.
Yeah, certainly not. Definitely with Bowser's coming up, that's kind of the last big choke point typically. But you know, I've also seen a number of people kind of throwing a lot of time away in Moon Kingdom
Yeah,
in
for
these
various
races.
reasons, like
Just
the 2D skip, for instance, that seems to have plagued a number of runners at this level.
yeah. So as we get into Ruined here, you guys know the drill. There's not anything too crazy going on in this kingdom. Just gonna remind you guys that the finals for this league, as well as the SM64 70-star Division 1 League and the Celeste 90% League, are going to be held at a live event coming up in April, from April 25th to 28th. It's going to have the finals of those tournaments and a whole lot of other fun stuff going on. So if you're interested in attending PACE, check out !tickets in the chat. That'll take you to a link with some more information, get you settled to attend and see these runners, you know, the top 4 of all these leagues live in person, see them battle it out.
Yep, and I'll certainly be there, and I'm looking forward to seeing as many people there as I can. It's going to be an awesome historical event for sure. And it's worth pointing out right now, too, as chat seems to be talking about, and we've confirmed from Dansta himself, he's actually 1 second behind his PB right now.
Yeah, so really nice run for him here. Not only on PB pace, but taking the lead into the last couple kingdoms. Potentially a really nice finish for him.
And let's see what he's contending with for these last couple of phases. But barring some completely ridiculous major issue, he is good on this Ruined Kingdom Dragon.
You know, I don't know what kind of, if that has some kind of time save in the late game is PB or not, but be very cool to see if he pulls out a PB in the race setting. You know, we said it at the beginning. It's always possible. I think both these runners are capable of much better times than their PBs are right now. Both having sub-hour sum of bests.
Yep, and with that new Seaside Discovery, they're certainly due for a new PB with a free 6-second time save in their new route.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I guess we won't be seeing Dansta go for any kind of safety strat, I wouldn't imagine, being in the position he's in.
I certainly wouldn't think so. Or at least I wouldn't hope so. And Stravos, I would kind of hope the same for him since he's pretty close, honestly, not super far behind Dansta. Could easily pull out a lead by the end of Bowser's if everything goes well for him and not so much for Dansta. But it's not over till it's over, folks. And we'll really just have to see what happens in these next few minutes as we go into the last leg of this race.
Yeah, no matter what happens for the last two kingdoms here, certainly the win is still in play for either runner, but even whoever winds up losing this race, it's looking like they have a good shot at those maximum loser points being within 10 seconds of their opponent.
Yeah, and that's like, if you're ending up in a second place position, that's the best you can hope for. And it really makes a loss pretty soft overall. It really does do a lot to help kind of bring to the table at the end of the league the fact that, hey, even though you lost this race, it was so close. And more than likely, another racer wouldn't have had the same outcome as you.
Yeah, because like if you're within 10 seconds of your opponent in a loss, it essentially counts as a half of a win. And that can go a long way in upping your point total for the overall standings of the league, for sure. It's definitely not insignificant.
Let's see both these guys handily taking care of the Ogre. Gotta love this triple jump strat here. Just makes him such an easy boss.
Yeah, we'll move into I'd say other than the actual Robo Brood fight, coming up here is probably like the trickiest movement section of Bowser's Kingdom, gathering all these moon shards.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing how many different ways there are of doing it, depending on whether you're integrating the Pokeo Moon into your route. I don't think a lot of people do that unless they're still at the very, very start of their route planning, but... Ooh, getting bombed there, knocked off the platform. So Stravos has a pretty decent amount of time that he can make up with Dansta still having issues getting up. He's at 1 HP. He could take a death here. I don't remember if he got the checkpoint earlier.
Oh, and actually, looks like that was very risky there, capturing the Pokeo like that, because when you're very close to a capture, when you're trying to get those double captures, it's very easy to take damage. So he easily could have died there. That was very risky.
Looks like it paid off overall for him, though, grabbing the moon, going to be replenishing his HP, but he's going to be falling behind Stravos, it looks like, because he does have the HP wheel refresh that he still has to deal with.
Yes,
if he's not behind, he's really close.
Yeah, I do agree. I think Stravos is going to take a slight lead here. We'll see them as they are able to move Mario.
Oh, sink! Sink! This is crazy! This is not another one. Oh no, Dansta taking a bonk there, ruining the sync already. Commentators asking for not another synchronized ending to a race and getting it, unfortunately. But Stravos with a brand new lead going into the double... I'm forgetting the stupid rabbit's name. The double fight. It's Harriet and Topper. What is their last name? Why can't I remember this right now?
They're the Brutals.
That is correct. I feel so I don't know. This is just wild. I'm gonna blame this race on why I can't think right now. That's...
Yeah, like I was saying, even though the lead has swung in Stravos' favor, Dansta's still obviously in a good position to potentially win this race with any slight slip up from Stravos. and if not, in very good position to get maximum loser points.
Yeah, and I mean, they still got a pretty considerable number of things ahead of them that can very, very easily go wrong. Stravos, midway through this topper fight, we're about to see if he's going to be losing time on the hat ring here. And it's good. Sharpshooter precision right there, but still having to do with the brutal mech at the end of this kingdom. Still having to deal with the Bowser fight, which normally doesn't give you too many issues, but in a high pressure situation like this, that very, very first hit could maybe present a problem or two. And then, of course, the entire escape sequence. If this is close to the pillar room, that could even make the difference. If these guys, one of them just has a really bad time with that first pillar, who knows?
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty easy to lose 3 or 4 seconds in the pillar room alone. So, it's it's nice having something like that at the end of the race because in these close situations, it can make for some pretty exciting lead changes in the last minute.
Yep, and I mean, a lead change in the last minute is I can't think of very many more exciting things that could happen in a race other than like a sub hour in a race or something like that, or just perfect sync throughout as we've seen in one of the past league GSA races. And I really love that we're going for this box moon now. Makes this section kind of a lot more free since you're not having to do that triple jump to get up on top of that wall in the first place. And it just sets you up really, really nicely to keep going with that jump past the bomb section.
Yes, we'll see both of them making their final Pokio climb up to the top to engage the Robo Brood in combat and hopefully not fall off of it.
Okay, so Stravos is going into his fight. Let's see if he's able to start this. And he's got that backflip, like, on lock. I mean, they tell you to do the backflip as soon as you can give Mario inputs. He obviously put it in before the screen even got filled in. Like, that's... Oh, and that beautiful spin pound right there. That spin pound just has such a really tight window for no good reason. On a topper.
Yeah, just like the jerky movement of the Robo Brood. Kind of makes a small window that you're able to jump up and actually get that ground pound.
And let's see if okay, Stravos committing to Harry at first. He's going to be going for target acquired. Let's see, and it's good. Very nice from Stravos. Going to be maintaining his lead, exiting this fight, and giving Dansta a run for his money. And Dansta is good too, so both of them making out the fastest possible brutal fight here. So moving into Moon Kingdom, just seconds apart of each other. It's still anyone's game, but Stravos with a decent-sized lead that will be setting him in prime position to take this win.
Yeah, I think we're in a situation where potentially even a one failed moon skip attempt could swing the lead back to Dansta. So it looks like he's about 7 seconds behind.
I could certainly see it. And I mean, even beyond that, like we do still have to, in some ways, consider 2D skip as it's caused a lot of issues for some runners in races in the past, and that alone could easily set Stravos from being in a lead to ending up just hoping to be not any more than 30 seconds behind. And so then now they've got that completed hot air balloon and they're able to make their way up to the moon. Kind of interesting how this is kind of glossed over throughout the entire game up to here, what exactly you're building up that bubble towards. And then it's just kind of casually like, oh, we're just going to the moon with it.
Everyone knows you need a golden balloon to go to the moon.
Yeah, of course. And then you need an even bigger, more golden one to go to the darker side.
So yeah, with both these guys finishing Bowser's Kingdom at like a low to mid 56 minutes, looking like they are on like high 101 pace, both of them. Which is, you know, it's like that's what we said. They both got mid to high 101s in their previous race, so they're looking like a pretty good repeat performance. Assuming no major flubs on the moon, of course.
Yep. A little bit disappointing that Dansta wasn't able to clutch that PB out, but it will come sooner rather than later. I am completely certain. And I mean, it's been a great race nonetheless. I think Dansta can certainly walk away from this feeling super proud of his performance, regardless of if this ends up being a win tonight or not.
Yeah, I think anytime you are in a race and you come within a minute or so of your PB, that's about all you can ask for the most part.
Yep, and Stravos ending up doing a backflip there instead of a ground pound right at first to start off his moon skip attempts, but ending up doing just fine, losing like maybe half of a second, if that, to Dansta. And I like them both going for that kind of J turn movement to instead of some people like I used to do like a side flip there and then a cap throw to get on top of the red carpet platform, but the way that they do it, you get a lot more horizontal distance down the platform before you actually get on top of it, and it's certainly a decent amount faster just because of that. Let's see, Stravos, nice first phase of this second Bowser fight. So let's see what the next two bring about for him, but should pretty well have solidified his ticket into the escape sequence now. Everyone in quiet anticipation of the end of this race. Not a whole lot to say when both the guys are in this Bowser second fight. I mean, like in some ways, I almost feel like the fights in SM64 were better. I think Nintendo just always kind of had a little bit of an issue figuring out how exactly to bring Bowser fights into the 3D world.
You know, the SM64 fights are definitely much scarier and more difficult, I would say. We've seen many more world record and PB pace runs choked at the final Bowser fight in that game as opposed to this game. But yeah, we at the very least we get the escape sequence, which has an element of a higher skill ceiling than the actual Bowser fight. So we at least get something at the end.
Yeah, as I think it was Dated was pointing out yesterday with Nintendo kind of having this trend of, but it's not over yet with the endings of their games. I think
Yeah.
I think the fight now that you say it that way, the fight kind of fits well within that. Because by itself, it would by no means be a satisfying ending to this game with how honestly easy it is.
For sure.
But when you're having to deal with this escape sequence right after, it certainly feels like at least a little bit more of an accomplishment, knowing it's just on the way rather than the end. Although, gotta think for just a moment, we'd be sub-hour by now if that were the end of the game.
That's true. We'd be well under sub-hour by now.
It's interesting to kind of think for just a moment about those little things. Like, now that the record is a 1:00:10 like it is, if we just started timing on the cutscene skip dialogue box where you skip the intro cutscene rather than starting a new file, that would actually be a sub-hour run, I believe. Or maybe just barely over an hour.
It'd be just barely over. That's like 10 seconds, 9 or 10 seconds. Gaining control of Mario, however, that's
then
even
I think
further in.
Chaos's would have been a sub-hour then.
Yeah, yeah, it would, because that's about 33 seconds.
Yep. Be a real interesting one to see. And Stravos, okay, his fireball's getting pretty messy overall. Gonna have to take a little bit of extra time on this first pillar, but not wasting too much. Still has a discernible lead over Dansta. Not going to be giving it up without any sort of fight. Dansta, let's see how he's going. Those are 4 right on target, right on cue. Is the camera going to try to shift? Not sure if he actually got all 4 of those.
Yeah, he's going to go for that last fireball. But Stravos looked like possibly he, when he was shooting those fireballs, he got kind of an empty hop. There might have been an instance of a drop motion input to shoot a fireball. That's kind of what caused him to have to go off to the right for the extra shots. Yeah, Dan's just gonna have to do it the old-fashioned way. Get that pillar down 4th.
It's really a shame when you can't get that pillar down first try and get that nice movement from the back. And Stravos pulling out the win with a 1:01:32 in this race.
Yeah, and it looks like Dansta is gonna just miss that that 10-second cutoff, but he will still look to get 18 points out of this race for being less than 20 seconds off, assuming that these times are accurate enough, which I assume they are. So, a very good race. Both 101 from both of them. Can't ask for much better than that. Both within a minute of their PBs. And Dansta, like I said, getting almost maximum loser points. So, a very solid race for both runners. And
And we now have both of them in this call with us. So I'm going to start with Stravos. How are you feeling after that winning run?
Man, that was a scary race. uh, Watching that back, like seeing our paces, like every time I thought maybe I caught back up a little bit, like no, not really, and like whenever Dansta probably thought that he lost his lead, no, not really.
I agree.
yeah, there was a lot of back and forth there. It seemed like for a while and like in the beginning, you were kind of pulling away just by like a couple seconds each kingdom, and then scooter clip kind of happened and it brought it back to even. Then I think Dansta started pulling away at that point, and then you brought it back in Bowser's to take the final lead
so
and kept it till the end.
It was so dumb for me.
The break and ruined really helped me reset my mindset a little bit.
Yeah, I always liked having Ruined Kingdom there, even if it is kind of boring. It's a nice little mental reset for a few minutes.
Yeah, but sometimes it can also mess with your mojo and you start playing worse.
Yeah, that could happen too. I think that's just depending on the person, how they kind of react.
Dansta.
Yeah, and Dansta, how are you feeling whenever that bomb got you in Bowser's and kind of set in motion that Stravos reclaiming the lead?
I was like, please make a mistake. because like always in cutscenes I'm looking at the stream, and then for example after turnip clip I was like, okay, I lost so much time there, he did it so much better, and then right after I thought of that, he makes a big mistake there. And that happened like over the whole run.
Yeah, that's the problem with throwing the turnip from that far away, is that you can often get the turnip into what looks like a perfect position, but it's like just resting against the cage enough that like you can't squeeze the Panbro in there.
Yeah.
And I went for it. I knew it was possible that I had to set it back up again, but I went for it for the time save. That was a bad idea, but it worked out because I got a little bit lucky there, I'll be honest. Dansta played great.
I also golded the Metro by half a second.
Oh,
That's
nice.
why I pulled ahead there, probably.
Yeah, and I had probably the worst night and day Metro I've ever had.
I had with a 741, so that was pretty good.
You know, go ahead.
Yeah, did you guys catch my snow moon clip at all by chance?
Yeah,
Yes,
that was very nice.
That was scary, more like.
Yeah, I actually was saying, because it didn't quite look like you were going to reach the load zone at first.
You
That
thought
was
it was going to be death for just a moment.
Yeah, and I think I might need a new controller soon because my stick is feeling wiggly, you know. So like I was scared with the camera turn that I might not be able to get the dive onto my cat bounce while out of bounds while the camera was turning. So I had to really slow down my gameplay and concentrate there.
Yeah, when the controllers start to wear out a little bit, you can kind of get these little instances where like the angle will just flick ever so slightly more left or right of what you intended, and that can, in a situation like that, that can just be huge. That can easily cause you to die.
Yep.
Also, APB for me is so overdue. Like after Lost, I was 30 seconds behind, and going into Bowser's 1 second behind. So, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's the time saves there, so I'm sure you'll get that PB soon enough.
And do you think that kind of maybe affected a little bit of the nerves going into Bowser, knowing that you were so close to the PB at that point?
No, not really.
Well, yeah, I mean, your last two races have been 101, so your consistency, at least for getting this kind of time, seems to be there. Yeah. So I'm sure you'll break that 100 barrier very soon. But yeah, any closing thoughts from the two of you?
Well, that was a good race.
Yeah, GG.
Yeah, very close one all
GG.
around. I think we do have another Odyssey race coming up right after this.
We absolutely do. We've got Fur versus Metroid Slayer, or Rails, as he's more affectionately called, and I will be commenting that along with the Dangers. So don't go anywhere if you want to see more Odyssey action today. And in case you do have to leave, thank you so much for watching this race today, and thanks again to our runners. GG's, great runs from both of you. And if you got to head out, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you around. Goodbye.